Use hashtag Michigan to get on the show. I've got my stats and research department bringing me a water because I have been on here for an hour and 15 minutes just for you guys. Dylan, use hashtag Michigan to get his attention. But Dylan, let's just go through the best channels. If you've got some just people ranting and raving, I'll answer anything, even if it's just like a go blue or a fire Harbaugh, whatever you got. But let's take this first question from Christopher Falcon. How big were penalties on big plays for us? I mean, they helped in a little way. I think there was some chatter around here that things were starting to even out throughout the game, but they certainly hurt Michigan in the first half. Helped them on that 101-yard. Was that Hamler that had that, right? 101-yard kickoff return to start the second half, and there's certainly the play with Lavert Hill in the second half that led to Penn State's last touchdown. So definitely hurt. It's an undisciplined thing for teams to have a lot of those penalties. So they were big. Thanks for the question, Christopher Falcon. As Mitchell Rand's our guy says, get a picture so we know what you look like and we can maybe feature you at our best looking audience contest that we've got coming up later in the month. Nick Casper says, can you honestly say Michigan's all-around coaching isn't absolutely terrible? It has been, right? I think Jim Harbaugh, Don Brown, and Josh Gaddis, I mean, other than the Rutgers game, they've all got C's, D's, or F's all year. So certainly it's been terrible, but like I can't fault him. I guess I don't know. I may end up eating these words, right? But this is as good as I've felt in a loss in a long time for Michigan, right? I thought maybe had the game not got away from them and John O'Korn made so many terrible throws in the fourth quarter, I could have felt good after that 2017 Ohio State loss because I thought Michigan was so outmanned that day it wasn't even funny, and they got out to a big lead and were within a play of potentially tying or winning that game. But I honestly say that it's been pretty bad, but today showed me that they've got something left and they've got potentially a second act. Maybe they can go 4-1 down the stretch, salvage the season 9-3, develop players like Ronnie Bell, develop Charbonnet, develop Hassan Haskins. Eric All had a big-time catch tonight. Cam McGrone, Daxton Hill can be a player. And if you do that with some other players that are coming back next year, you could have a team going forward into year 6 for Jim Harbaugh. But the question remains, a lot of people are unhappy with this loss. Should Michigan fire Jim Harbaugh? Type Y for yes. Type N for no. I'm going to go get a little action, see what people on the YouTube are thinking. We got 200 plus watching here at 12:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 here Central. I'm saying N. I'm saying Y. I'm tossing them in there to get you guys answering questions. I don't think so yet. But you can't lose to both Ohio State, and you've got to win 2 out of 3 against Ohio State, Michigan State, and Notre Dame. And that might not even be good enough for some people, and it probably shouldn't be because that means you still, if you lose that, it means you've got a losing record against, if you beat Michigan State and you lose Notre Dame and Ohio State, then you're 0-7 combined against those teams, right? If you lose to Michigan State but beat Notre Dame, then, okay, now you're 2-3 against Michigan State. Nothing feels right with those if they lose 2 of those 3 games. I kind of think he's got to win 2 of 3, and maybe he's got to win all 3 of 3. To have people not calling for a job next year. So should Harbaugh, Michigan fire Jim Harbaugh? Answer below Y or N. Let's take a question from James Heikkinen. Almost sounds like Heineken if I was him. Dylan, you might not know this, but did you know that Joe Theismann, his real name is actually Joe Theismann in like 1976 or something like that? This is not a joke. Is this a joke? Not a joke. Changed his name from Theismann to Theismann just so he'd get more love from the voters. And I think James Heikkinen should have changed his name to James Heineken and been a way better party guy in college. So great name, James. I might start going by James Heineken. But Don, big play Brown, stay. I think Jim Harbaugh loves Don Brown. But I want to ask you guys this question here. Is Don Brown overrated? Answer below. Is Don Brown overrated? I think he's overrated, yes. Like, he is not the defensive messiah that everyone has called him with Michigan's just racked up top 5 defenses in the last 3 years. So I'm going to put this question in the YouTube chat. Is Don Brown overrated? You see it live on the questions. Use hashtag Michigan to get your questions on the air. Take a look at those stats. Still just throw them up there. Look, you're dealing with the pro here, baby. This isn't one of these schmucks that are looking all over the face. This is a pro here. You toss the stats up. I'll talk about the stats. 28 points given up tonight, 283 yards, 182 passing, 101 yards rushing. I thought it turns out statistically better than I felt that it was, and the second half was really good. But you can't just forgive him for that stretch in the first half where we'll go from a 0-0 kind of tight game to, I think everyone just assumed, oh my gosh, this is another 45-7 blowout to Penn State like 2 years ago, whatever that score was. So good stats all in. Gave him a chance to win, helped him 7 points in the second half, but nevertheless, he's certainly not the best defensive coordinator in college football. Okay, a question from Jeffrey Luthian. What QB on the roster should start getting reps the remaining of the season to prepare them for next season? It's a good question. And people are probably going to be like, well, if they like Shea Patterson, they're going to say keep Shea like I am. If they're not liking Shea Patterson, they're going to say this. But there is potentially a valid point to what I think he's trying to say here. And that point really is, what are you playing for now? Could this be a problem with Jim Harbaugh keeping players motivated? Could Jim Harbaugh see guys sit out? Like, I'm not going to throw out names. We all know the wide receivers. We all know potentially some of the guys that think they've got NFL aspirations, maybe more than they deserve. And could those guys sit out the rest of the season? There's not a Big Ten championship to play for. I think Shea Patterson should start, but there is a potentially school of thought that says we're not going to win a title this year. We're probably not going to beat Ohio State, especially if they crush Wisconsin. I think you throw up a white flag and you just say, we're not going to play this game. You guys win 30-0. Let's just call it a game, whatever it is. That you might want to get Joe Milton, Dylan McCaffrey, the experience they need to play, as a starting quarterback next season because Shea Patterson's not going to be around. So we'll ask you this question. Who should start at quarterback versus Notre Dame? S, D, or J, okay? Do you want the D? Do you want the J? You want to keep it with S, okay? I mean, there's some innuendos in there that you guys might take away. I don't think about that stuff. But who do you want to start at quarterback next week? I think it's Shea Patterson if you want to have a chance to win. But if you're giving up on this year, and you're even saying, well, there's no playoff chance anymore, so why don't we just start playing for next year? Jim Harbaugh has shown in the past at Stanford. He went to Andrew Luck as a redshirt freshman, so he went young. The 49ers, he changed quarterbacks mid-year after an injury, and the starting quarterback, Alex Smith, came back. He stuck with the backup Kaepernick, went to the Super Bowl. So it wouldn't be crazy to think, but I think you can't tank in college football, right? There's no tanking for Tua. There's no tanking for Zion, so I think you got to stay with Shea, even if it means that you've got a guy. And Michigan opened up the season so stupidly, on the road next year at Washington. Why they keep doing this to themselves, I have no idea. So you might start off next year 0-1, and that's going to be a bummer because it's going to be a top 15 Washington team probably. I mean, Jacob Eason might go pro, but nevertheless, S, D, or J, who should start next week for Michigan. How about RFK? Do we finally have a way to stop the crossing routes? I mean, look, they weren't that big of a killer. It was the deep routes today, right? The deep routes were the killer. It wasn't the crossing routes. So it seems like we do have a way, right? So good question and great observation from RF. I mean, there weren't those crossing routes today that killed Michigan. And we show us on Clifford. After Hamler, show Clifford's first half stats and then go back to his full game stats. Because I think there's some validity to that Michigan maybe proved, Tom. I'm not sure if you in the backup, the gallery, what you think about there. Did they figure out how to do the stop the crossing routes? It certainly seems like they did. Sean Clifford, 115 yards in the first half, 2 touchdowns, rush for 2 touchdowns, and he didn't end up with that much more. You saw his full game stats, so they stopped him in the second half, and those plays were made, those yards were made, those touchdowns were made, deep passes over the head of the secondary. So it wasn't the linebackers and the corners getting killed on drags like they've been in a lot of games this year and certainly in those last few games of last year. KJ Hamler, though, he was all he was cracked up to be. A bummer that he ended up in at Penn State because, I just didn't realize for some reason, maybe I just don't follow these guys a lot of times after they leave high school, and so I'm not looking up what every single player where he went to high school at. But KJ Hamler from the state of Michigan went down to IMG Academy, was not with Shea T because they were a year apart, but he was a difference maker. And if he was on Michigan today, he certainly could have. That could have been the difference. I mean, I don't even think. Maybe I was just sleeping on his recruitment altogether, but it doesn't even look like he was in the finalists for Michigan. Being from Farmington, maybe MSU was more of his style if he was going to stick in the state, but it looks like his finalists: Penn State, Michigan State, Oregon, Arizona, Cincinnati. Even though he was a 4-star prospect in the composite rankings, top 50 receiver overall. Let's keep it rolling. Nick Casper. Do you think Michigan would have a better chance to win with 50-50 deep balls instead of the speed and space short passes that hardly work? Yes, before tonight. Like, this was a different offense. How many times did they throw wide receiver screens with 3 and 4 wide to the right? How many times did guys get yards after carry? I am going to look this stat up. If you guys are statisticians out there and you know it, save me some time. If you see anybody else do it, save me some time and get me the stats. But I would be willing to bet that Michigan had more runs after catch yards that didn't go for touchdowns. So let's take out the Nico Collins play against Rutgers, and let's also take away the Ronnie Bell play against Wisconsin. If you take out those two plays, one was against Rutgers, the other one was a broken play, so not really even the playbook, not a design play. I would say you take every other catch Michigan had this year, and they had less yards after catch than Michigan did today. And they didn't have a ton of yards after catch, but frankly, Michigan's had no yards after catch. There's been no speed in space. There's been no hitting guys, streaking across the field with 2 or 3 yards of green with a defender not hanging all over him. So I like the routes they ran today. Certainly the toss-up to Nico Collins needs to happen 4 or 5, 6 times a game or more if it's working. But finally the speed and space stuff seemed to have a life, seemed to have a home, and the receivers and the quarterbacks and the RPOs finally made an appearance. Shea Patterson threw that pass to DPJ. That was one of the best RPOs in Michigan football history. DPJ drops it, pops up in the air. Ronnie Bell comes and catches it, scores a touchdown. Oh, but wait, Cesar Ruiz was an ineligible man downfield. Andrew Kramer gives us the hashtag Fire Harbaugh. I'm going to take some of that Fire Harbaugh heat. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We got to. Yeah, okay, gotcha. I'm going to drink some water, put out that Fire Harbaugh heat. Because I know the narrative coming in. People are mad. I don't feel that bad after this loss. Maybe that makes me crazy. Maybe that makes me a sucker. I don't know what the pundits and the scribes are going to call me, but I don't feel that bad after this loss. Come on! Who put this up here? You sons of guns! This show's over. Turn it off. Okay. The bureaucrats and the pencil pushers here at Chat Sports, these guys just sitting back there counting up the audience and the views. Say, get your ass back on air, Yoder. But I was ready to show it off because we got to throw this up there. Now this makes me mad. Gosh, you guys, you people. 0-7 on the road versus top 20 teams. Only one win on the road against top 25 teams. He is no Lloyd Carr. We had this conversation earlier. Some of the staff here at Chat Sports, some of our guest hosts, and said, look, Lloyd Carr had basically the same record as Jim Harbaugh every year. He was 10-3 every year, except for one or two years. Even 99 they had a 2-loss year. 06 they had a 2-loss, but every other year it was 3 or more. 97, of course, with the 0 losses. But Lloyd Carr would win this game against a top 7 Penn State team, but then he'd lose to 4-4 Illinois the week after, and something like that. He'd lose to Northwestern. He'd lose to a 6-6 Michigan State team. So Harbaugh doesn't lose to the bad teams outside of Iowa in 2016, but he doesn't beat the good teams, and he certainly doesn't beat them on the road. So it feels worse with Harbaugh for some reason. But you can feel better off this game by putting some of your straight cash, homie, your Benjis, your Bills, your Greenbacks on some NFL games. And I think there's a couple late games. I don't know. No, it's probably too late for any of it. Is Hawaii playing tonight, Dylan? They might be playing. Don't bother looking that up. If they are, put some money on the over. Do it with BetDSI. Promo code GoBlue at chatsports.com/bet. 120% deposit bonus gets you 120% bonus on the money you put in. So if you're going to put $100 up, you got $220 sitting in your account. You're going to put $200 in there, you got $440 sitting in your account. You can go all the way up to $500. It's $600 extra dollars for a total of $1,100. Math, 1997 Hinckley Elementary Math League champion right here, James Yoder. From me to you, BetDSI hooking you up with the best promo in the game. D Original says 0-7. What's going to be next? Let's go to 0-10. I mean, look. This is not a new thing for Michigan, right? This is not a new thing for the Michigan football program. The last top 10 team Michigan beat on the road ever in the history of the program, this is the last top 10 victory Michigan had. 2006, September 2006, against Notre Dame, right? Number 2 Notre Dame. Where I remember that game, 46-21, if I'm going off the top of my head. Prescott Burgess had that touchdown. Lamar Woodley had a touchdown. Mario Manningham, 3 first-half touchdown passes. Michigan came out smoking hot that day. That's the last top 10 win on the road against a top 10 team. By the way, last 14 seasons, 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 14 seasons, Michigan has 2 wins on the road against a ranked team. 06, against Notre Dame last October 20th, against Michigan State. Now 34 straight games without a 100-yard wide receiver, and no Jim Harbaugh quarterback recruit has ever thrown for more than 160 yards a game. These are damning stats, and the original, I kind of agree with you. We might end up at 10 games because certainly, do they have any more road games this year? They've got 3 home games coming up in the next 6 weeks, against Michigan State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, but no more road ranked games this year. So maybe that will go to 0-8 against Washington to start next year. Alan Klee, good question, Alan Klee, as I'm getting a phone call here. I'm going to take this question. I'm going to answer this. They know we're still live on air. I'm getting questions. I'm getting calls from people trying to have me change my medical insurance. They have no respect for the fact that the Michigan Football Report is live on the air. They could have just went up our YouTube channel and said, is that YouTube celebrity Yoder on air? We're going to check out. But he says Shea did not lose that game, his best game while at Michigan. Look, first half stats tell a story. You got 6 drops there. So imagine you catch all 6 of those, which maybe you can't expect. But he's 18 of 22 for 180 if they catch all those, and 2 touchdowns probably, right? So, and maybe better than that because that would have extended a few drives. So you catch all 6 of those, which maybe you don't. I think Shea he'd be something like 22 of 28 in the first half or 225. But we go to the full game stats: 24 of 41, 276, no touchdowns for Shea Patterson on the day, 1 interception. And he had 1 rushing touchdown. Just a gutsy play, one of the more gutsy plays, one of the more gutsy team plays under Jim Harbaugh that I have seen. But Shea Patterson's stats, 24 of 21 on the day. You can come back and bring me full screen if you want, Dylan, if we're going to sign off. That was the last question we're going to take. And I want to thank you guys for watching the full show. But we're going to loop this bad boy, Dylan, right? We're going to loop this bad boy, so we're going to keep it rolling. So if you miss any of the show, if you weren't with us in the beginning, we're going to keep looping this bad boy for the next 2 hours we're going to do, Dylan. We're going to do 2 loops, so we're going to have this bad boy go until 3 a.m. Eastern time. I think that's the way to go. Make sure to subscribe, youtube.com/Michigan TV. Coming up, we've got your questions, Michigan football grades, my takeaways, and you're going to meet the man, the myth, the legend, Michigan football historian, Big T, Tom Yoder, coming up. Keep it rolling here on the Michigan Football Report.